A seemingly ordinary day took an extraordinary turn when I noticed my dog furiously digging in the backyard. Little did I know, what he unearthed would leave me absolutely speechless. The sun was shining brightly in the small suburban neighborhood where I had lived for the past several years. My home, tucked away in a quiet cul-de-sac, had always been my peaceful haven. It had a cozy feel, with a modest backyard that had a wooden fence surrounding it. The garden was well maintained, with an assortment of flowers, shrubs, and a small vegetable patch near the back gate. I enjoyed spending time there, especially after long workdays when the world felt a little too loud. It was my little slice of serenity. In the corner of the yard, just a few steps away from my back door, was my dog, Rocky. He was a medium-sized golden retriever with a playful spirit and a heart full of love. Ever since adopting him from the shelter 3 years ago, Rocky had become a loyal companion. His bright eyes sparkled with excitement at the smallest of things, and his wagging tail was a constant reminder of the joy he brought to my life. Despite being the epitome of friendliness, Rocky had one quirky habit. He loved to dig. Whether it was chasing a scent or just seeking attention, his digging always intrigued me. On most days, it didn't seem like much more than a playful act or an attempt to find something buried beneath the earth. Little did I know, this particular day would be different. It was a Sunday morning, and I had decided to relax in the backyard with a hot cup of coffee, enjoying the calmness of the day. As I settled into my chair, I glanced at Rocky, who was already pacing back and forth in his usual excited manner. I had grown accustomed to his antics, so I wasn't immediately concerned when I saw him starting to dig near the far corner of the yard. But this time, there was something different in his energy. He seemed more determined, his paws working overtime as he burrowed deeper into the earth. For a few moments, I watched curiously, assuming he was just searching for something, perhaps a hidden stick or a long-forgotten toy. But as he continued, I began to notice something odd. The earth around him wasn't just being displaced. It seemed like Rocky was uncovering something solid, something that wasn't just dirt. His digging became more frantic, and a sense of unease crept into me. I wasn't sure why, but something felt off. I rose from my chair, walking over to him, calling out to Rocky, who paused and looked up at me, his tail wagging furiously, as if proudly showing off his progress. I knelt down beside him, brushing some of the dirt aside with my hands. That's when I saw it, a small metallic object, half buried in the soil. It was old, weathered, and had a strange gleam to it. My heart skipped a beat. Could this be some kind of treasure? Rocky sat back, looking up at me with those big, brown eyes, almost as if waiting for me to acknowledge his discovery. I gently brushed away more of the dirt and realized that what Rocky had uncovered was not just any object. It appeared to be a small, rusted metal box, tightly sealed. The box had intricate designs etched into its surface, and it seemed oddly out of place in my otherwise ordinary backyard. Curiosity overtook me, and I quickly pulled the box from the earth, holding it carefully in my hands. It felt heavy and ancient, as though it had been waiting to be found for years, perhaps even decades. As I examined it closer, I noticed a faint symbol on the lid, one that I couldn't immediately recognize. There was something about it that felt both eerie and fascinating. At that moment, the calmness of my yard, the peaceful Sunday morning, and my beloved dog Rocky, who was now sitting silently by my side, all felt like a distant memory. The box had taken center stage, and the excitement that had once been a playful exchange between me and Rocky had now turned into something far more mysterious. What had Rocky uncovered? How had it ended up buried in my backyard? I paused for a moment, realizing that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't yet imagine. I looked at Rocky once more, his tail wagging softly, as if pleased by the attention he had drawn. The simple, everyday life I had known was about to give way to a strange new journey. One question echoed in my mind. What was inside the box? I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew that this discovery had the potential to lead me down a path of mystery and surprises. The combination of Rocky's instinctive digging and the strange object he had uncovered had set the stage for something I couldn't yet understand. And so, with the sun shining down and the gentle hum of the world around me, I carefully turned the box over in my hands, ready to see what secrets it might hold. The next steps would reveal a story far greater than I could have ever imagined. A story that began with a dog's simple desire to dig, but would soon lead to a journey that would forever change my life. What was inside that box? Only time would tell. As I held the mysterious metal box in my hands, a mixture of excitement and apprehension filled me. The rusted object, small and intricate, had an undeniable aura about it, almost as if it were calling out to me. The box was surprisingly heavy for its size, and the symbols etched into its surface seemed foreign, ancient, almost as though they belonged to a civilization long forgotten. The fact that Rocky, my golden retriever, had uncovered it made it all the more intriguing. What was this object, and why had it been hidden in my backyard? My first instinct was to open the box, but something about it made me hesitate. It wasn't just a forgotten trinket. It felt like it could be important. What if it was dangerous? What if there was something inside that I wasn't prepared for? My thoughts swirled with uncertainty, and I found myself pacing back and forth, wondering what to do next. I couldn't just leave it there, but at the same time, I didn't want to jump into anything without knowing more. As I stood in the middle of my yard, I realized that this wasn't just a random occurrence. Rocky had been acting oddly lately, more fixated on digging in that particular spot than usual. Could there be something more to this than mere chance? Was it possible that he had uncovered something that had been buried there for decades or even centuries? I decided to go inside and do some research. I placed the box on the kitchen counter and started by searching for similar objects online. After hours of scouring websites, I found nothing that matched it exactly. The symbols on the box seemed to be unique, and no immediate connections came to mind. But I wasn't about to give up that easily. I reached out to a few local historians and antique dealers, hoping they might recognize the design. One historian, after hearing about the mysterious object, suggested that it could be from the Civil War era. But that was just a theory, and I had no way of knowing for sure. The more I thought about it, the more questions arose. Why had the box been buried in my backyard? Who had buried it there, and for what purpose? Could it have been a treasure, hidden away to protect it from being stolen or lost? Or was it something far more ominous, an artifact with a dark history? Rocky, ever the curious companion, seemed to sense my growing unease. He followed me around the house, his tail wagging less energetically than usual, as though he, too, felt the weight of the mystery hanging over us. He would occasionally look at the box with a knowing gaze, his eyes wide and searching, almost as though he wanted to help solve the puzzle. I decided to take a closer look at the box once more. I noticed a small seam along the side, barely visible, which indicated it could be opened. I reached for it, my hand shaking slightly, unsure of what I might find. It was a moment of hesitation, a split second in which I wondered if I was about to unlock something that should have stayed hidden. But my curiosity got the better of me. With a gentle twist, the lid of the box popped open, revealing a collection of items that seemed even more puzzling than the box itself. Inside were a series of small, weathered papers, old and fragile, along with a tiny brass key. The papers were too delicate to touch without the risk of damaging them, so I carefully laid them out on the counter. As I inspected them more closely, I saw that the writings were in an old script, completely unfamiliar to me. Some were faded beyond legibility, while others were slightly more intact. There was a sense of urgency that rose in me, as if I were about to uncover a secret that had been kept hidden for far too long. The tiny brass key caught my attention. It was oddly shaped, unlike any key I had ever seen before. I wondered what it could possibly open. I inspected it closely, but there were no obvious clues. The only thing I could make out was a number engraved on the side, 32. What did that mean? Could it be a code or a clue to something larger? The more I examined the items in the box, the more questions piled up. What had Rocky uncovered? Was it just a collection of old papers, or was there something more to this discovery? I felt a growing sense of unease as I realized that this might not be a simple curiosity. It might be a deeper mystery, one that could change everything I thought I knew about my home, my neighborhood, and perhaps even myself. As I sat there, contemplating the significance of this discovery, I realized that the situation was far more complicated than I had ever imagined. I was no longer dealing with just a dog digging in the backyard. I was entangled in something much larger, something that had been buried for a reason. The key, the papers, the mysterious box, there had to be a connection. But what was it? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of uncovering something monumental. And with that realization, my entire world seemed to shift. What started as a simple afternoon in the backyard with my dog had now become the beginning of a journey, one that would test my courage, my resolve, and perhaps reveal secrets I was never meant to find. The more I thought about it, the more the box seemed like the key to something much greater, something that had been waiting for years to be unearthed. And so, with a sense of purpose that had overtaken my initial hesitation, I set out to uncover the truth behind the box, the key, and the mystery that had been hidden beneath my feet for so long. The moment I held the fragile papers in my hands and the tiny brass key glinted under the dim light, I knew that something was about to change. My heart raced as I stared at the key. It felt heavy with significance, as if it carried the weight of years of secrets. I had uncovered something monumental, but the question was, what now? The sun had set by the time I finally stood up, pacing back and forth in my living room. Rocky, my golden retriever, remained close by, his ears perked up as he watched me intently. The once playful dog, who had dug up the strange box in the backyard, now seemed unusually quiet, almost as if he understood the importance of the discovery. His gaze never left the small box on the table, and for the first time, I wondered if Rocky had known something I hadn't yet grasped. Could this whole ordeal have been part of something larger, something planned? I couldn't stay still. My mind raced through the possibilities. The number 32 on the key lingered in my thoughts. What did it signify? And the ancient script on the papers, who had written them and why? What was so important about the contents of the box that it had been hidden for so long, right under my feet? I made a decision. I would not let fear or uncertainty hold me back. I had come this far, and I had to see this through to the end. The first step was clear. I needed to find what this key unlocked. But where could I start? I thought back to my research, to the stories of buried treasures and hidden relics. Was this box part of a larger puzzle? Or was it the puzzle itself? My mind wandered to an old chest in the attic, an old heirloom that had been passed down in my family for generations. It was a beautiful chest, but I had never paid much attention to it until now. The brass key seemed to fit perfectly with the chest lock, but as I stood in front of it, a wave of hesitation washed over me. What if I was wrong? What if this was a mistake? Still, the thought of leaving the mystery unresolved gnawed at me, and I couldn't ignore the pull to find out what lay hidden inside. With a deep breath, I inserted the key into the lock. The sound of the key turning in the chest lock was satisfying, almost final, as if I were opening a door to another world. The lid creaked open, revealing the dark interior. Inside, there was a single item, a small, ancient-looking book. It wasn't much to look at, but its presence sent a chill down my spine. This was it. This was the piece I had been searching for. As I carefully picked it up, the weight of the book seemed to increase. The cover was weathered, faded with age, and the leather binding had cracks running along its surface. The pages inside, too, looked fragile, yellowed with time, but they felt different, alive, as if they held some power waiting to be unlocked. The writing inside was written in the same ancient script as the papers from the box. My heart pounded in my chest as I flipped through the pages, trying to make sense of the symbols. And then it hit me. The symbols weren't random. They formed a map that pointed to a location in my own backyard. The very spot where Rocky had dug up the box. I couldn't believe it. The mystery wasn't over. It was just beginning. The box, the key, the chest, and the book. They were all leading me to something deeper, something hidden beneath the earth. It was as though the universe had been waiting for this moment, and I had been chosen to uncover what had been buried for so long. My fingers trembled as I traced the lines of the map with my eyes. The location was clear. It was right beneath the tree where Rocky had dug. But why hadn't I seen it before? Why hadn't I noticed the signs? The book, the map, the key. It was all pointing to the same place. Without a second thought, I grabbed a shovel from the garage and headed back outside. The moon was high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the yard. I could barely make out the tree in the dim light, but I knew exactly where to go. Rocky followed closely behind, his tail wagging slightly as though he understood that the next part of this journey was important. I reached the spot where Rocky had first started digging, and I could feel the weight of the moment settle in. The earth beneath me seemed to hum with energy, as if it were alive. I knelt down and began to dig, the soil cold and dense. My muscles ached, but I didn't stop. The anticipation was unbearable. Every inch I dug felt like another step toward uncovering something monumental. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the shovel struck something hard. My breath caught in my throat. I cleared away the dirt to reveal a small metal box, almost identical to the one Rocky had uncovered earlier. My hands shook as I reached for it, pulling it free from its burial ground. As I held the second box in my hands, I realized that the mystery had only just begun. The first box had led me here, to this second discovery, and I could feel that there were more pieces to the puzzle, more secrets waiting to be unlocked. The book, the map, the key, they had all led me to this moment, and I knew that the answers I sought were just beyond reach. What was inside this second box? What would I find? Only time would tell. And with that, I realized that this journey was far from over. What lay ahead would test my courage and curiosity, but I was ready to uncover the truth, no matter where it led me. As the second box sat heavy in my hands, its presence was both unsettling and exhilarating. I stared at it, unsure of what I had just uncovered. The night air had grown cooler, but I barely noticed. My mind was racing, overwhelmed by the enormity of the situation. The moonlight reflected off the metal, casting shadows that danced along the ground. In my gut, I knew this wasn't just a coincidence. It couldn't be. Rocky sat quietly beside me, his eyes scanning the yard as if sensing the tension in the air. His tail was still, and his usual playful energy had been replaced with a solemn awareness that mirrored my own. I couldn't help but wonder, had he known all along that this was coming? Had he led me to this moment? It was a thought that made my heart skip a beat. I thought he was just a curious dog, but now it seemed that he might have been playing a much larger role in this mystery than I could have imagined. I carefully placed the second box on the ground, beside the first. The two boxes now lay side by side, and for the first time, I began to question what I was doing. Was I opening Pandora's box? Could there be danger hidden inside these mysterious objects? The weight of responsibility pressed down on me. What if I was unlocking something that was never meant to be found? But I couldn't turn back now. The desire for answers was too strong. I fumbled with the latch of the second box, my fingers trembling. With a click, it popped open. Inside, instead of more documents or treasure, I found a small metal object, a compass. But it wasn't just any compass. The needle didn't point north. Instead, it seemed to swivel and spin, constantly moving as if it was searching for something. I stared at it in disbelief, my mind struggling to comprehend its purpose. What could this compass possibly mean? Was it guiding me to something, or was it part of a larger, more intricate puzzle? Suddenly, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees around me. The world seemed to shift, the air thick with anticipation. Rocky barked once, sharply, breaking my trance. I looked up, and my heart nearly stopped. The trees in the distance were no longer just trees. They seemed to have transformed, their shapes distorted as if they were part of the very mystery I had stumbled upon. The landscape no longer looked familiar. The lines of reality seemed to blur, as though I had crossed some invisible boundary. The compass in my hand began to pulse faintly, a soft glow emanating from its center. Was it reacting to the energy around me? I felt an overwhelming pull, as though the compass had a will of its own. I had to follow it. Without fully understanding why, I stood up and began to walk, the compass guiding my every step. Rocky, as if sensing my resolve, followed closely behind, his presence a reassuring comfort in the chaos of my thoughts. The journey seemed endless, though I had only walked a few yards. Every step felt like it was taking me deeper into an unknown world. The landscape continued to warp, the shadows shifting in unnatural ways. It was as though the very fabric of reality was being torn apart. And yet, the compass led me forward unerringly, its needle pointing steadily in one direction. As I walked, my thoughts began to race. What was I getting myself into? What would I find at the end of this strange path? The questions kept coming, but no answers followed. I had no idea where I was headed, but I couldn't stop now. My feet carried me forward with a force that felt beyond my control, as if I was being drawn towards something greater than myself. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the strange feeling began to dissipate. The landscape settled into a more familiar shape, and the eerie distortion that had overtaken the world seemed to fade away. I was standing in front of an old, crumbling stone wall, one I had never seen before, yet it seemed to have always been there, hidden in plain sight. The compass stopped glowing, and the needle stilled, pointing directly at the wall. I felt a shiver run down my spine. This was it. This was the place the compass had led me to. I stepped closer to the wall, inspecting it closely. The stones were weathered and worn by time, but there was something strangely deliberate about the way they were arranged, as if someone or something had placed them there for a reason. I ran my fingers along the stones, feeling for any sign of an opening or a hidden mechanism. And then, just as I was about to give up, I felt it, a small indentation in the stone. My heart raced. Could this be the key? I pressed the compass into the indent, and with a soft click, the wall shifted. A hidden door opened before me, revealing a narrow passage that led deep into the earth. The air was cool, and a musty smell wafted up from the darkness below. I hesitated for a moment, but the pull to explore was too strong. Without thinking, I stepped forward, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. Rocky stood at the entrance, looking at me with his usual loyal gaze. His eyes seemed to say, "You're not alone." He followed me into the darkness without hesitation, and together, we ventured into the unknown. As the door closed behind us, I realized that this was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead in the darkness would change everything. The mystery had deepened, and now there was no turning back. The air inside the hidden passage was thick with the scent of earth and age. Each step I took echoed loudly in the narrow corridor, and my heart beat faster with each passing moment. The dark seemed to close in around me, but the faint glow from the compass in my hand kept me grounded, its needle unwavering as it pointed forward. Rocky walked beside me, his fur bristling with an energy I couldn't quite place. He was no longer the playful dog from earlier. Something had shifted in him too. I could sense his alertness, a tension that mirrored my own. The deeper we went into the passage, the more unsettling it became. The walls were uneven and jagged, as if they hadn't been touched in centuries. Every once in a while, I glanced up to find strange markings carved into the stone, symbols I didn't recognize but felt instinctively connected to something greater. The compass in my hand pulsed with each step, its glow intensifying as we ventured further into the unknown. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. My breath hitched, and I instinctively reached down to pat Rocky, who had grown even more alert, his ears perked up. His eyes scanned the darkness ahead, but I couldn't see what he was sensing. Was it just my imagination? Or was there something more to this place than met the eye? A sudden sound broke the silence, sharp and jarring. It was a faint scraping noise, like something heavy dragging against the floor. I froze, my heart racing. I strained my ears, trying to locate the source. It came from ahead, just a few feet further down the passage. I could feel my stomach tighten with unease. I wasn't alone. "Rocky," I whispered, though I didn't know why I thought the dog could help. But his eyes met mine, and in that instant, I knew he understood. We weren't just walking into a mysterious passage, we were walking into danger. The scraping noise continued, and then, without warning, a low growl echoed through the passage. It wasn't Rocky. It was something else, something menacing, sound that chilled my blood. Rocky's hackles were raised, his body tensed, but he didn't back down. We both stood motionless for a moment, waiting for the next sound, the next move. Then the growl came again, louder this time, closer. I didn't know what to expect, but when I turned the corner ahead, what I saw left me breathless. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at me from the shadows. They were unnaturally bright, almost inhuman, and they moved in the darkness like predators watching their prey. I instinctively stepped back, clutching the compass harder, though I knew it wasn't meant to protect me. Rocky, however, stepped forward, growling fiercely as he stood between me and the mysterious creature. The eyes moved again, darting back and forth as if searching for a way to escape or attack. In the dim light, I could make out the faint outline of something massive, lurking in the shadows. It was not a human shape, but it wasn't an animal either. The thing in the shadows was something ancient, something forgotten. It looked like it had been there for as long as the passage itself, lurking in the dark, waiting for someone to stumble upon its domain. My pulse quickened. What was this thing? Why had it been hiding in the shadows all this time? My mind raced as I tried to process what was happening, but nothing made sense. The only thing I knew for sure was that this creature had a deep connection to the hidden passage and to whatever secrets lay beneath it. The growl intensified, and I could see the creature's shape becoming clearer. It wasn't just the eyes I could see now. It was a massive, hulking figure, covered in strange, mottled fur. The creature was on all fours, its movements slow but deliberate. I could hear its breath now, ragged and heavy, as if it was more than just hungry. It was desperate, but for what? My mind was spinning with the possibilities, but before I could react, it lunged forward, its claws scraping the stone floor as it advanced toward me. Instinctively, I stepped back, pulling Rocky close to my side. His growl was louder now, a sound of defiance that seemed to challenge the creature's every move. But the creature didn't stop. It kept coming, its eyes locked onto me, its movements growing more aggressive. I could feel the tension rising in the air, thick with anticipation. The creature was ready to strike, but so was I. I wasn't going to let it take us without a fight. I held the compass firmly in my hand, my only source of light and hope. What was its role in all this? Was it just a guide, or did it hold some sort of power I hadn't yet understood? The creature came even closer, and I felt the air around us shift. It was like the walls of the passage were closing in on me, the shadows growing darker, the air heavier. My breath was shallow, and I realized I was holding it, waiting for the moment when everything would change. Just as the creature was mere inches away, Rocky surged forward, his teeth bared in a vicious snarl. With a speed I didn't know he had, he leaped at the creature, knocking it back with a force that startled me. The creature howled in surprise and rage, scrambling to regain its footing. But Rocky didn't stop. He attacked again, pinning the creature down with an intensity that matched its own. I stood frozen for a moment, watching the battle unfold before me. But then I snapped into action. With shaking hands, I grabbed the compass again, holding it high above my head. As the needle spun wildly, I felt a strange energy surge through me, a force that seemed to draw the creature's attention. It turned toward the compass, its eyes locking onto it with an intensity one hadn't seen before. And then, just as quickly as it had begun, the creature stopped. It froze, its eyes wide with a mixture of fear and confusion. The growl stopped, and the tension in the air dissipated. The creature backed away slowly, retreating into the darkness, leaving us behind. Rocky remained alert, ready to protect me, but the threat was gone. The passage fell silent again, and I couldn't help but exhale in relief. But I knew this wasn't the end. The creature might have retreated, but the answers I was seeking were still out there. And with a compass in my hand, I knew I was only getting closer to the truth. Whatever this place was, whatever this creature was, I had no choice but to continue forward. The mystery was far from over. The eerie silence that had enveloped the passage after the creature's retreat felt surreal. My heartbeat was still hammering in my chest, and the adrenaline coursing through my veins seemed to make the air feel thicker, heavier. Rocky stayed at my side, his eyes darting from corner to corner, ever watchful. His ears flicked as he listened to the faint sound of the environment, the distant drip of water, the scurrying of small creatures in the shadows. But for the moment, the immediate threat had passed. I looked down at the compass in my hand, its needle still pointed forward, unwavering. Despite the chaos, despite the fear that gripped me just moments ago, there was a strange sense of peace in its glow. I wasn't sure how it had caused the creature to retreat, but something inside me knew that the compass held the answers I had been seeking all along. It wasn't just a tool, it was a guide, a key to unlocking something far greater than I could have ever imagined. Rocky, I murmured, my voice hoarse, we're not done yet. The dog gave a soft whine, as though acknowledging my words, and together we pressed on. The passage ahead was no longer as foreboding, though I still felt the weight of its ancient walls pressing in on me. The journey was far from over, but I felt a renewed determination surge through me. The mystery had just deepened, but somehow it felt more solvable than before. As we walked, I couldn't shake the thought of the creature, its glowing eyes, its unnatural presence. I had no idea what it was, but I had a growing suspicion that it was tied to the passage, to whatever secrets it held. The creature had clearly been protecting something, but what? And why had it been so afraid of the compass? These were questions that burned in my mind, unanswered yet impossibly close. The further we walked, the more I began to notice small details in the walls, markings that seemed to pulse with a faint, almost imperceptible glow. These symbols, which had once seemed like random scratches in the stone, now appeared purposeful. There was something deliberate about them, something ancient, perhaps even sacred. My fingers grazed the wall as I walked, tracing the intricate patterns that seemed to tell a story of their own, a story I wasn't yet ready to understand. The compass continued to lead me forward, its pull undeniable, guiding me deeper into the heart of the mystery. But it wasn't just the compass anymore. Rocky's instincts seemed to have shifted too. His steps were more purposeful, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. He was no longer just following me, he was leading the way, as if he, too, was aware of the greater purpose behind our journey. And then I saw it. At the end of the passage, the dark stone walls opened up into a vast chamber, a cavern that stretched further than my eyes could see. The glow of the compass intensified, casting a pale light across the walls of the cavern. It was a surreal sight. Every surface of the cavern was covered in ancient symbols, and at the very center, there stood a stone pedestal. On the pedestal rested a small, ornate box, its surface covered in the same markings that seemed to echo throughout the passage. I took a hesitant step forward, my heart racing once more. Rocky growled softly, as though sensing the importance of the moment. His stance was alert, protective, as though he understood the weight of the decision before us. Together, we approached the pedestal, the compass leading us inexorably toward it. As I reached out to touch the box, the strange energy that had surrounded the passage intensified, swirling around us like a force that seemed to come from deep within the earth itself. With trembling fingers, I lifted the box from its resting place, feeling the cool stone against my skin. A faint hum resonated from it, a vibration that I could feel deep within my bones. For a moment, everything was still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. And then, as I opened the box, I understood. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, lay a small, ancient key, its metal gleaming with an otherworldly light. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before, its design intricate and beautiful. But it wasn't just the key that caught my attention, it was the feeling that washed over me as soon as I touched it. A rush of images, sounds, and emotions flooded my mind in an instant. The visions came so fast that I couldn't comprehend them all. But one thing was clear, this key had a purpose, a destination. It was the key to unlocking something far more significant than the passage we had just traversed. The key wasn't just meant for me, it was meant for the world. It held the power to unlock knowledge that had been lost for centuries. Knowledge that could change everything. I closed the box gently, the weight of the key heavy in my hands. My thoughts raced, trying to piece together everything that had happened. The creature, the compass, the strange symbols, the key. Everything was connected, and the path ahead was clearer than ever before. But there was still one question left unanswered. Where did this key lead? What door did it open? And what will we find on the other side? I didn't know yet, but I was determined to find out. This was just the beginning. Rocky sat down beside me, his head tilted slightly as he looked up at me. There was a calmness in his gaze, a sense of quiet understanding. Whatever came next, we would face it together. With the key in hand and the compass to guide us, there was nothing we couldn't overcome. I turned, taking one last look at the cavern before we left, knowing that the mystery wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but with Rocky by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came our way. With a final glance at the key in my hand, I whispered, "Let's see where this leads." The weight of the key in my hand seemed to grow with every step I took. The cavern's ancient glow had dimmed now, leaving only the faint light of the compass to guide us out. Rocky, ever loyal and watchful, walked ahead of me, his tail wagging as though he sensed that this was a turning point. We had discovered something monumental, and yet it felt like the true adventure was just beginning. As I walked through the narrow passageway once more, I couldn't help but think of everything we had encountered, the strange creature, the mysterious compass, and now the ancient key. It was as though the universe had led us to this very moment, each step bringing us closer to an answer that had eluded humanity for centuries. And yet, I knew that the answers we had unlocked were just a small part of a much larger puzzle. What secrets did this key hold? What doors would it open? The questions were endless, and I was determined to find the answers. Despite the uncertainty, I was filled with a profound sense of purpose. Rocky trotted beside me, his fur brushing against my legs as we made our way back toward the world we knew. His presence was comforting, a reminder that I was not alone on this journey. Together, we had faced the unknown, and together, we would continue to seek out the mysteries that lay ahead. The path before us was uncharted, but that was exactly what made it so thrilling. I had no idea what awaited us, but for the first time in my life, I felt truly alive. The weight of the key in my pocket was a constant reminder that there was so much more to explore, so much more to understand. It wasn't just the physical journey that awaited us, but the journey of discovery, of learning the secrets of an ancient world that had been hidden for so long. This was a quest that would change everything, not just for me, but for everyone. As we finally emerged from the cave, the fresh air greeted us like an old friend. The world outside seemed unchanged, but I knew I wasn't the same person who had entered that dark passageway hours ago. The adventure had changed me. I had uncovered something powerful, something that would resonate with me forever. The key was not just a physical object. It was a symbol of something much larger. It represented the endless possibilities that lay ahead for us, the secrets of the past waiting to be uncovered. I stopped for a moment, allowing myself to take in the peaceful landscape around me. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the earth, and for a brief moment, everything seemed perfect. But even in that moment of calm, I knew that there was so much more to discover. The journey had just begun. Looking down at Rocky, I smiled. "We've come a long way, buddy," I said softly. "But this is only the beginning. There's so much more to explore." Rocky's tail wagged, his bright eyes locked onto mine, as if he understood every word. Together, we would continue down this path, uncovering the mysteries that awaited us, one step at a time. We weren't just adventurers anymore. We were explorers of the unknown, seekers of the truth hidden beneath the surface of our world. As I reached into my pocket and felt the cold metal of the key, I couldn't help but wonder what it would unlock next. There was so much potential in that small, unassuming object, and I knew that it would change everything. It would lead us to places we had never imagined, to worlds that had been forgotten for millennia. And with each new discovery, we would grow closer to understanding the true purpose of the key and the world it came from. But there was something more pressing now, something that I couldn't ignore. The journey had to be shared. There were people out there who needed to know about the discoveries we had made, the secrets we had uncovered. This story was bigger than just me and Rocky. It was a story for everyone. It was a story of discovery, of hope, of unlocking the mysteries of the past and carrying that knowledge into the future. If you've been inspired by this incredible journey, if you're as curious as I am to see where the key will lead us next, then join us. This is just the beginning, and there's so much more to come. I'll be documenting every step of the way, sharing all the discoveries, the challenges, and the revelations that await us. So if you want to follow this incredible adventure and uncover the secrets of the world with us, hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on the next chapter of this extraordinary journey. Trust me, the best is yet to come. As I stood there, taking in the moment, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. For Rocky, for the discoveries we had made, and for the path that lay ahead. This was the start of something remarkable. Together, we would unlock the mysteries of the world, one step at a time. So, what are you waiting for? Join us on this incredible adventure. Let's see where this key takes us and what secrets it holds. The journey is just beginning, and we need you by our side. Stay curious, stay adventurous, and let's uncover the world's greatest secrets together. Subscribe now, and don't miss a moment of this life-changing journey.